Hey, what's up, guys? Basically, I kinda got a longer video for you. It might be longer, it might not. It's basically, let me show you. It's a video about science. It's a response video. I'm calling you out, Veritasium. You're an idiot. You need to shut up. There we go. Veritasium 1.3, 1.7 million views. He has about 19.4 million subscribers. This came out a few days ago. Something weird happens when you simulate lifeless molecules. I'm gonna finish just because, but I'm making a point and I'm making a response basically. Um, and I might finish it just because, but I'm making a response because that's what I do. But I'm not gonna watch all of it. I'm just gonna, you go watch it. Um, and I'm just responding to what he said. So if you watched it, cool. If not, you gotta watch it, buddy. Sorry. I'll post the link. I'll actually just so I don't forget. Okay. So 520.
If you want to know if someone really understands, most attempts fail and fall apart, but every so often, by pure chance, you get a compound that is more stable than the blobs it's made of. This doesn't happen because the blobs want to build more complex.
I'm trying to think, should I do the whole thing or no? Yeah, we'll just do the whole thing. Fuck it. Okay, fuck it.
If you want to know if someone really understands evolution, just ask them this one.
So I'm responding to him. I might skip. We'll see.
Weird question.
Why does poop smell bad?
Wow.
Oh gosh.
Because there's bacteria in it, I guess.
Microbiome, probably. Trash
Yeah, trash
of
in
the
gut.
body. Of the food we eat. Because of the chemicals.
This to me seemed pointless.
Arguably. Yeah.
Use it as food. Poop smells good to flies because poop is full of nutrients. They use it as food. But
So, real quick, you asked why does poop smell the way it does? They explained it. That's it. Now, you can go and talk about other stuff, but it has nothing to do with what you asked them. You didn't ask them to explain why it smells the way it does, or what it's doing, or blah blah blah, but you're talking about stuff that is a result of, like, if the point is you're a nerd. I'm sorry to say, Vertasum, you're a fucking nerd. And I realized that watching this video. I'm not gonna watch the whole thing.
it's also full of bacteria that is because if anyone ever thought it smelled
Individual.
higher hand true to protect the hive, even though it might kill them in the process. Female worker ants are sterile, so they can't reproduce.
Wait, so this
Or a higher likelihood individual animal being about the survival. And if anyone ever thinks food smelled good, it's about survival of the fittest. But
okay, so feeding, poop, don't eat, bad, and it smells bad, tastes bad. It's so we don't want it, basically. And again, you're answering a question you didn't ask, and I guess you're trying to feel good for it. I don't know. But it does break down to, if you really want to think about stuff like this, as I assume you do, most people won't. Most people like football, but I don't like football. I'd rather talk about things like what you're talking about. This is God stuff, right? This is philosopher level stuff, okay? But understand, I'm better than you when it comes to this shit. I have a list pointing out. Let me show you real quick my list. If you want to read, you can. It's fine. I don't care. Let's see. I could do it here actually. Boom. There's my list. This is my response to you. Okay. My script that I wrote. You can pause it and read if you want. But That's basically me pointing out, no, look at this. No, you dumbass. They're the same thing. Like, it's literally me calling out the whole fucking time. And so I'm trying to think, so I don't want it to last fucking 10 hours. You know what I'm saying? But I also don't want people to not be knowledgeable about what they're looking at, or not being. I want people to watch it, and I want people to be aware of what's going on and what the fuck is going on here. There we go. So anyways,
Survival of the fittest what?
I mean, most people think of natural selection.
Die and not pass on their genes. After all, it's about survival of the fittest. But survival of the fittest what?
that's another question that you don't answer. Survival of the fittest, what? You, duh. Right? But you don't, like, for no reason you ask this, and everything you say after is nothing. Watch.
I mean, most people think of natural selection as being about the survival of the fittest individual animal.
Individual.
Individual. Animal. Animal. Okay, so it's like an individual.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. I mean, individuals best adapted to their environment have increased odds of survival and therefore a higher likelihood of passing on their genes. So it follows that each individual should do everything it can to survive and reproduce. That is, it should be selfish.
But if
It should be selfish. Yeah, it is.
that's true, then how do you explain this?
I mean, worker bees will sting predators to protect the hive.
You answered your own question. They will sting predators to protect the hive. You went from humans to bees. There's no correlation between the two. You understand? We have differences. It went from A to B. You're comparing oranges to apples. It doesn't work. You can't do that. This doesn't prove anything.
Even though it might kill them in the process.
They're protecting the hive. As a human, we don't have a hive to protect, so we won't do that.
Female worker
But would we, if you had a hive? The army, why does the army do what it does? It's the same fucking thing, you fucking idiot.
ants
You're an idiot. Veritasium. You're an hold on. Veritasium, you're an idiot.
are sterile, so they can't reproduce. But
Yeah, but just like all the humans, right? All the humans are sterile.
regardless, they work for the colony for their
Because they're ants. They're not bees. They're not humans. They're ants.
entire lives until they die. Monkeys adopt orphans.
They're monkeys. They're not ants. They're not bees.
Wolves
They're not humans. Oh, wolves. They're not monkeys.
bring meat to non-hunting members of the pack, and squirrels can let
They're also not any. They're not related. They're all their own fucking variants.
out alarm calls to warn others about nearby predators.
Yeah, I know. That's them letting their family know, hey, get in the house. There's a killer outside. That's what's going on. You dumbass. Like, what the fuck? What's funny is everything I've said so far is nothing to what I wrote down.
So if natural selection is all about selfish individuals,
It's not about selfish individuals. You're just a dumbass, and you made it seem that way. But I'm here to tell you, he's wrong. It's not. Don't be selfish.
why do we observe so much altruism in nature?
Because it's not, you fucking idiot.
The survival
It's just in those aspects that the logic changes. That's it.
is of the species that can adapt.
I think generally the species.
For the survival of the species.
Group also doesn't work.
Okay.
But survival of the fittest species or the fittest group also doesn't work. I mean, think
Why not? Oh, because you change the speed. Oh, doesn't work for humans, so therefore with bees it must not work. No, it works for the bees and humans. We're different species, you fuck.
about what you need for natural selection to occur.
You need something that replicates it.
Dude, bees do that. Natural selection. Let's see. They're born and they can't have babies. So nope, that doesn't work.
Self many times over, creating
Oh, we're going back to foxes and animals that don't do what bees do. Okay, that makes sense. And we're comparing animals to humans because humans are animals and we do have, but they're not selfish. Don't get me wrong, today, currently with President Trump and that whole breaking down of the system, it's becoming more selfish. Basically, and we're seeing the results of what happens when you lie, cheat, and steal because it has nothing to do with being selfish, you stupid idiot.
copies, and then you need a pruning process whereby some of those copies get eliminated and some thrive to go on and create more copies. The problem with groups or species as a whole is that they don't typically make copies of themselves. So you almost never get copies of groups fighting other copies of groups to see which groups win out.
Unless you're talking about bees or you're talking about Asians, basically, they used to do that. I know back in the day, the Jing Dynasty against the Ming Dynasty versus the Ping Dynasty versus the Muhu Dynasty. You know what I'm saying? They groups of people fighting other groups of people for.
So if it's not survival of the fittest individual, and
Shut up.
it's not survival of the fittest group, then what is it?
What is
Well,
what?
to explain that, I want to take you on a little journey, all the way back
What is what?
to the beginnings of the Earth.
What's the reason to life? It depends on what that life is, you fucking idiot. This is why I get pissed off. Neil deGrasse Tyson was asked if you could break down science into what word would you use? He said, maybe. And right then and there, I was like, I lost all respect for you because anybody and their mom would say it depends. Because 100% it depends. Everything in life depends.
Where we are now, there is nothing. Well, not really nothing, but nothing interesting. There are only simple things like these blobs. This one might be a carbon dioxide molecule, or it might be cyanide. We don't know for sure what they are, but we do know that these compounds are very simple. So for now, they'll just be blobs floating around our void. In fact, much of what we'll encounter along our journey here are just hypotheses. A lot of Earth's early history is still a mystery, so...
To you, to me, it's not that. I mean, it is, but I know enough to say enough, basically. So
keep that in mind.
you are an idiot. I'm not. So
Now, every so often, our blobs get a surplus of energy, maybe from a ray of UV light or a nearby hot source. This is the first major upgrade to our void, excess energy, as it allows our blobs to interact with each other.
it's funny because this guy, you can hear it in the way he's talking. He's so like self-assured, so confident, but he's a dumbass and he has no idea what the fuck he's talking about. Me, I actually do know everything, but I'm held insecure and like, basically, because I'm uncertain, because I'm learning. But when we stop and we look at what I already know and we get into the more confident fields, that's when you see me, the me pop out and I'm like, shut up.
Most of the time, this interaction leads to nothing. But sometimes these blobs can combine into more complicated compounds.
Neat.
Here's a simple simulated example where we only have 4 red blobs. Right now, they are all individual particles, but each time step we move forward, let's say there's a 10% chance that all 4 combine into one red megablob. Now imagine this megablob isn't very stable. For every time step it's alive, it has a 95% chance of falling apart back into the 4 smaller blobs. If we add more of these red blobs into the mix, you'll notice that they rarely ever come together. On average, a megablob only exists around 10% of the time. But if we were to reduce the chances of the megablobs dissolving to only 1%, the void would suddenly be filled with them. This fact hints at an important law that governs our void, the law of stability.
444. Okay, so my first comment was at 520, so we'll continue.
Unstable blobs fall apart and vanish, stable ones endure. Now, watch what happens if we speed this up dramatically. Maybe a couple of years per second, maybe even a couple million. You can see our blobs keep getting random jolts of energy, so they combine with others to form more complex compounds. Most attempts fail and fall apart, but every so often, by pure chance, you get a compound that is more stable than the blobs it's made of. This doesn't happen because the blobs want to build more complex structures, it's just because these new configurations happen to be more favorable in the environment. And now, when these complicated
So, do you hear it?
doesn't happen because the blobs want to build more complex structures, it's just because these new configurations happen to be more favorable in the environment.
Happen to be more favorable in the environment. So, first comment, that basically answers your question. But because you are biased and want us to come to a different conclusion, your conclusion, you missed that statement and instead want other people to see what you're saying and continue with this bullshit game that you're playing and make things up. So again, you ask, what's the point? Listen.
It's just because these new configurations happen to be more favorable in the environment.
That's the point. That's it. So everything you're about to say was already answered by you at the start. But because you have a conclusion that you came up with and a story that you want to tell, you didn't even notice it. This is how life works, and this is why you can't have a dictator. This is why you need freedom. This is why America is so great. Because I spotted it, I seen it, I should be rewarded. This is the problem. Hollywood and the lies and dictatorship that Trump's bringing will try to hold me under so that they can benefit, because they need to benefit off of my potential. They stay up by holding me down. Whereas before, America was like, that's good, we'll make you a star. Whereas like, that's good, we'll make you a great worker under me. You know what I'm saying? That's to the world today. I can't make it. So because I can't make it, I need to hold as many stars as I can under to keep myself up. That's the world today. Anyways, continue. So that was the point. But go ahead, go on. Do go on, I said.
And now, when these complicated compounds become abundant enough, they too get a chance to combine, making our void increasingly complex. And one day, by accident, this causes an extremely unique shape to form, one with a special property. See, the blobs it's made of just happen to attract similar blobs from the surrounding environment. This red blob always attracts green blobs, and this purple blob always attracts yellow ones. And piece by piece, all these blobs attract their opposites, until their counterparts suddenly snap into position next to the original shape. Now, this shape goes on to do the same thing. Its green blobs attract red ones, and yellow ones attract the purple, until another shape yet again snaps into position. This new shape looks exactly like the original. What just happened, fully spontaneously, is replication. One shape became two. This marks the birth of the first replicator.
So here, I just wanted to illustrate how we have no idea what these little blobs are or made of. We just have tags that we created, but we have no idea. For example, why does paper burn? Oh, it burns because paper can burn, right? But why does it burn? Why is paper an element that burns? Why does wood burn? What molecularly? Like, why does it burn? Why doesn't this burn? Why doesn't that burn? Like, if you think about stuff, like, why doesn't this water just erupt into a boiling fucking, like, why? For why? Why? Right? It's just, we don't know. That's all we can say is that's what it is, but we don't know why. And that's kind of what I wanted to point out. We don't know, like, why. Like, what makes us us? We don't know. That's what I'm pointing out. We don't know. Right? And for the record, I'm stopping at times I authentically stopped at when I wrote this document. I'm not making any of this up. And people will say, "Oh, this is all real. It's all 100%. It's all." They're lying. I don't lie. Unfortunately, I don't lie. I suffered because I don't lie. Okay? So, anyways.
We don't know exactly what this replicator looked like. It might have been a single standalone molecule, or a group of molecules that worked together to replicate. There's a lot of debate on this today, so instead, let's represent the replicator as
635.
a character.
Oh, good. You mentioned it. Well done, right? So I said at 624, I literally paused it and said, but we don't know what it is. We just know that it exists. And then he goes on to say, many of our greatest minds don't know what it is, but we know what we know why, but we don't know what. You know what I'm saying? And our greatest people agree. And I was like, cool. So I am thinking like the greatest minds that we have. I am above you because you are quoting me, essentially, right? That's what's going on here. So that's what I wanted to point out right there. So 635, good to go. Now, ooh, what the fuck? There we go. Actually, sorry, 1 second. There we go. Okay.
How about this one here? Perfect. Keep in mind, it's still just a lifeless molecule, one without any intent or purpose.
Now, why? So I stopped at 645. Now, why would you ever presume that? Especially when you just showed us that its intent and purpose was to draw in and make a copy of. And so that was its goal. That was its intent, to draw in. And the reason why, the purpose was to make a copy. Now you want to go and say, oh, it doesn't have a reason, it doesn't have a purpose. So I asked, why would you do that? So now why would you ever presume, especially when you just showed that its intent and purpose was to draw in and copy? I think I just figured it out. The point of life, the point of our life is the same base, is the same as the base molecule that we are, and that is to make a copy. And I said, anyone got with some weed? Like, whoa, dude. Right? That was my, literally, I wrote that out because that's how I felt. Right? If you think about it, to make a copy, like, we want to have kids, just like the molecule wants to make a copy, but we aren't molecules. We're people. So we want to make people. Just like that little thing that you just showed us. We are that thing. We're just a combination of all of that shit. But me here in charge of all of that, that's me, right? Like, whoa, that's crazy. That's what I was like, whoa, you got weed? Like, you got weed? Holy shit. I want to be fucked up for this, because damn, this is good. This is fucking good. Shit. That explains it, and all this stuff. It's just side effects that we do. Wait, what? Okay. I think that's later. I might have forgotten to put the time stamp.
Now, you might think that the chances for the replicator to form were extremely unlikely. But in our void, where we have hundreds of millions of years to play with, what might seem impossible to us becomes virtually inevitable. And the thing is, the replicator only has to arise once. Once it's here, it can take the simpler compounds available in the environment to copy itself at a much faster pace. And so it does that until it entirely fills our void. At least, that's what you'd expect. But there is a flaw in the process. See, during the replicator's conquest of the void, one of its
That explains it, and all the other stuff is just side projects that we do as we exist and make copies. Your job, your living expense, experiencing life, paying rent, going to the movies and things, they are like that, all just second when it comes to having a child. But then we dive deeper and ask, why do we do that? And I think that basically the answer is to become God, and that is where the whole thing came from. And because I think I am all knowing and I might be him. And I said, whoa, like that's fucking crazy. Like the point of everything, like replicate. Well, humans, we're replicating and we're living. And that's the point. It's just gather everything you can and get the next generation ready. And then for what? And for what? And for what? And just build your. What are we building towards? What are we going for? And honestly, if you think about it, I think the whole point is to become God. To understand, to reach that point. And I think I'm the closest thing we have to it right now. So you want to have my babies. You want to join my cult, the Ninja on a Ninja cult. You want to drink my corn juice. You want to learn my corn juice? Corn and orange juice? What the hell? But anyways, you want to drink my corn juice, and you want to learn from me, because I'm the best. I'm knowledgeable. I'm the most knowledgeable. Like, Veritas was a fucking idiot. He's a dumbass. He's making this video, which is good, but I'm picking it apart, right? So all of this stuff he's talking about, it's like, that's why Chinese people exist, or why black people exist. Because we went different ways, we experienced life differently. He's explaining all that in molecules, right?
its copies makes a mistake. Perhaps a stray ray of UV light hits it during the replication
Now we have black people. Because the sun is brighter, now we have black people.
process, or the replicator uses a building block it wasn't supposed to.
You're drinking from plastic. Now your son is a female. Because you're drinking from plastic, and you shouldn't. We're using plastic bottles, and you shouldn't. Like, he's explaining life, but he's talking about molecules.
As a result, what we're left with is a new shape, which is slightly different from its parent, and so its properties might be slightly different too. This error might be harmful. For example, it might make the copy less stable. It could be beneficial, making the copy better at replicating. Or it could
This is a good beat, by the way.
be neutral, not changing the replicator in any meaningful way. This marks the final milestone in our void, mutation. Many species of replicators
Should have had that cigarette.
now occupy the void, and what they do
Your kid was born with one lung. Or, like my favorite streamer, Chibidoki. You have a curved spine, right? The point is, people vary. Same thing.
is they replicate themselves. The problem is they all need the same limited resources, and so our void turns into a battleground. So which replicator will win? What kind of properties will the void favor?
So, 814. So you created a bunch of replicators, but I was imagining them as basically humans, and that is what life is. What you described is exactly what a human is. So exactly what you're saying applies directly to human life. And then shortly after, he has to, that's shortly after this point, he has to sell his soul a little bit because he's sold out and he's a little bitch. That's what I wrote. I literally wrote that. Right? Watch. So he says this, and then he goes over.
Well, let's try to simulate what happens.
Loading simulation.
Now, if you're looking to run your own simulations or need a place to run your own code, look no further than today's sponsor. Nearly all limited miss code during this
Replicator battle might look.
And now back to our simulation.
Okay. So selling his soul, a good little bitch, right? And I'll never do that. He will. I won't. You should give me money, because I ain't gonna sell out. The only way that exists is either grassroots or sell your soul. Most people sell their soul. I'm grassroots, and this is why corruption is winning, because no one is giving. I can't work. I can't live my life. I can't pay. I can't even wipe my own ass. Literally. I literally cannot wipe my own ass because I'm disabled. I don't have an income. And so what I'm saying is I would have to go in and get a job. That's what the world is. You get a job and you become some dude's petty government, blah blah, and they hold you down, and no one ever grows, no one ever prospers, and no one ever makes it. And that's the problem. That's where we're at. These overlords decide what and who and where, and they get all the oil, so therefore they win. Like, what the fuck is going on? Philosophers, right? We have philosophers that would be as good as Plato and all of them, but we have them working at FedEx and shit. What the fuck? Like, come on, bro. What the fuck is going on? So anyways.
To simulate what a replicator battle might look like, let's assign simplified traits to each of the replicators, starting with the first one. This replicator is special, since it's the only one that can form spontaneously from smaller building blocks, so we'll give it a spawn rate. This should be quite rare, so let's set the chance of formation to 1% per time step.
Okay.
Just keep in mind, we're just making these numbers up. The simulation is purely illustrative.
Right. You're playing with dragons. You're a nerd. We know.
Now, once the replicator spawns, let's say it's governed by 3 key traits. First, a death rate, the chance of it falling apart or being destroyed with each time step. Let's set that to be, say, 2%.
That won't work. So 1028, about where I stopped. That won't work, because then death, as we've seen, is twice as likely than life. So whatever it is will die off. So your math, an example, already doesn't work from here, out the gate. You're right. First experiment, blah, blah, blah. That won't work, right? The death rate is way too high compared to the life rate. It's double. How can anything live? In reality, you have a 99 life and a 1% death. That would be more appropriate. It's just that what comes from it, that's what matters. What comes from life doesn't matter. Not what comes from existence. What comes, well, yeah, I guess it's the same thing. What comes from existence, what comes from life, what comes from everything. This is why it's a molecule to you, but it's a human to me. The point is, what comes from it? From your example here, it's just going to die, so it doesn't matter, right? That's what I'm trying to point out. So anyways, continue.
Second, a replication rate, the chance to copy itself with each time step, let's say 4%. And finally, a
So now it can live. But still, 2% is way more than 1%.
mutation rate, the chance a copy comes out mutated. If it's 4%, roughly 1 in 25 copies will be a mutation. So every time a new mutation spawns, it
Wait, what? So because it's 4%, that means it's 25%? What the hell are you talking about?
will increase the chance of each time step, let's say 4%. And finally, a mutation rate, the chance a copy comes out mutated. If it's 4%, roughly 1 in 25 copies will be a mutation.
Oh, 1 in 25. Okay, never mind. Okay, go ahead.
So every time a new mutation spawns, it will inherit the replication, death, and mutation stats from its parent, but slightly randomized. Notice that we won't give any of these secondary replicators a spawn rate. They'll only be able to form as mutations from previous generations. So if...
Yeah, but mutation and replication, it's each one of them has a chance to grow. That's the point. So, continue.
All of their copies die out, they'll be gone for good. Now, before we run the simulation, I want to quickly shout out the YouTube channel Primer, our
So, 11:10. I am glad to see that you are doing exactly what I do. It's unfortunate that you are a figure and a sellout, and that is why you are so much bigger than me. But at the very least, you are still doing the right thing by calling out people and spreading the love, basically. See, bad people exist, and what they do is they climb the ladder, the opportunity that we give them, and then once they're up, they turn around and pull up the ladder behind them, and we actually see that habit, and the habit exists, and we see it in the government, and we see that in the government today. Rich are trying to screw over the poor and such, basically. You gave them a chance. You had let them grow. You let them become, and now they want all for themselves. This is the problem. So, and then I said, I blame you for being stupid, but it's because you're ignorant and don't know better, and were brought up wrong, probably. My guess is you had bad influencers or bad parents or whatever, but you are not as good as me, for example, right? As far as that stuff goes. Okay, so that's said, so we'll get rid of that. Moving on, continue.
setup was inspired by his amazing in-depth simulations on evolutionary biology. You should really check him out. Okay, let's run it. The graph on the right will show how the populations grow, and this box on the left will show a slice of the void with all the winning replicators in the correct ratios. You can see how the first replicator appears and then immediately disappears, because it just happened to die before it got the chance to replicate.
Yeah, that was my point. Oh, 11:30. So, yeah, that was my point earlier, where I said your example would not work because it would pop in and pop out, basically. You said it. You said it to be life and then death at twice the rate, and that's not really how it is. In truth, it's more like life is 99% and death is like 0.001% or something like that. And because you gotta compare it to reality, not your little made up science fucking nerd bullshit, right? So, yeah, that was the point. 11:30, boom.
But that's okay, the original replicator can be created from smaller blobs, so it'll come back at some point.
So 11:34. Yeah, that is you making excuses for your failed logic. Fortunately, you are not God, and you don't exist. Unfortunately, he is a leading person, and people do turn to him to learn. That's unfortunate for us as a society because we have bad leaders and bad mentors, and that's why America sucks today, because we're learning from bad people. And the point was, you are not God. You don't exist in hardcore mode. You don't exist in hardcore mode in life, and fortunately, you exist in softcore mode, where it's an option for you. So you were bailed out because consequences don't mean anything for you. Right, and that was kind of my point there, was you made an experiment, your experiment failed, but it's okay because your experiment didn't matter. And then my point was, thankfully you're not someone like God, like myself, someone who exists where those things matter and where your science experiments matter and there's no bail out logic. It has to be legit or not legit, right? That's why I became #1 in PlayStation All Stars, and the Super Smash Brothers, League of Legends, Mortal Kombat, all these fighter games. That's why I became so damn popular. That's why I'm so fucking good at shit, right? Because I'm good. I am good. Clearly, you're not. So, anyways, continue.
This time, it's starting to take off. You can also see that it spawned some mutations, but they're struggling to keep up. Eventually, though, superior mutations pop up and start to replicate faster than the original. But you can see almost all of them are growing exponentially, which is unrealistic. That's because we're
Unrealistic, correct.
missing the final piece of our simulation: limited resources. The building blocks
Not true.
should eventually run out. We can simulate this
That isn't true. There's unlimited building blocks. That isn't true. You can say that it is true in certain areas, but it's not true in general. Like certain places, yes, you don't want to exist in a desert, for example, but what's it called? There is more resources, but in a place that is not a desert. You know what I mean?
effect by introducing a sort of resource factor to each species' replication rate. This factor should depend on the total number of replicators in the void, n, which will also divide with
So this part is you being a nerd and taking the experiment too far. And you are starting to make a novel out of a game of soccer, basically, right? Like it was supposed to be an experiment, but now you're trying to actually make it like, here's the idea. Okay, we got the idea. You're like, hold on, I want to explain the idea and be more clear. And like, we don't need that. It's the bigger point should be the focus. But you lost the bigger point and instead are focused on the nerding out on this. You here's what I'm saying? So anyways. So here
with an mouse being
because it's just
actually
all this is a nerd being a nerd, crunching numbers, experiments, and none of it matters because nothing is defined in life. Nothing is defined. So
around 9 wins. Replicator that 20% top this time. 17 here. 3 species simulation consistently. The real void all sort that lets and only favor mutations, determining the chance in themselves around. They develop senses and ways of storing energy. They even mix, exchange, and steal traits from each other. Through billions of years of trial and error, this scaffolding gets more and more complex, and as a result, the replicator's interactions with the void become exceedingly indirect. They build complex survival machines for themselves, machines whose sole purpose is to protect the replicators inside. These machines became such experts at surviving, they're still around some 4 billion years later. They are the bacteria, plants, fungi, and animals all around you. Everything alive, including you, was built as a survival vessel.
oops.
Everything alive, including you, was
I want to stop there because that's a nice eye, but yeah. So 1557. Yeah. I know. It's about time you close your little nerd book and woke up to reality, you nerd. All of that other stuff didn't matter, and that was you just being a nerd, nerding out over made of stuff that didn't matter because we don't know where the source is. And you are playing with something that cannot be defined or verified. So really, there's no point because you could be wrong or very, very wrong, right? There's a chance you could be right, but we would never know.
built as a survival vessel for these replicators. But today, you'd barely recognize them as replicators. Now, we just call them genes.
So 1606. I'm starting to lose focus because you have lost focus. You are following, or what is it? You are following. I'm starting to lose focus because you seem to have lost the focus and following you who is wrong and is not a choice I like to. Oh, so basically, what I said here was you're talking about stuff and you don't know what you're talking about. And because of that, I tend to not care because you're just like rambling. I'm like, whatever. You don't see anybody and their mom would be like, ugh. It's because, well, what are you talking about right now? Like, what are you talking about right now? There's no fucking point. So that's why I'm losing focus, right? The fact is, genes aren't not the name for it as you have stated they are, because they're just a name for it, because the replicator that you're talking about, if you think about it, was originally just a speck of whatever, and that speck of whatever is also in the air as well. So genes are just a form of this replicator. Like we are. That's why I made the connection so early that you were talking about us and that we were just a replicator and we were just making a copy that is us. So my point here was you said that it's genes, but that replicator you spoke about at the beginning, that's not just genes, that's everything. That genes are just a form that they took, right? And genes eventually started making us, but that's not what they are, because in a raindrop, replicators exist. You know what I'm saying? Life is life everywhere, and those replicators are life. They're one and the same thing. My point was genes are just a form of it, but they are the same fucking thing. But you are trying to call it that, and you're wrong. So, yeah.
They're hidden deep within every living creature. Strands of DNA made from the sequences of A, T, G, and C nucleotides.
No, yeah, they're made of replicators, but those A, T, G, T, whatever, those are also replicators as well. The replicators replicated something, and that something is what you're talking about. And those somethings then replicated again, and then they made DNA, and then the DNA replicated, and they made organs, and then those organs they're in our body, and our body makes us, and then us makes, you know what I'm saying? And then we work at FedEx, and it just goes on and on and on and on. And so, anyways.
Now, one of the leading theories is that those earliest replicators were actually something closer to RNA molecules, but then over time, this must have evolved into a more stable system of storing information, the DNA and proteins.
Again, this is nothing, it doesn't matter because they're both replicators. They, like, literally, the replicators made something that made whatever, and so now we have that, but those are replicators. The same thing in the eyeball, the same thing in your vagina or your penis or your balls, the same thing in the fish's butthole, the same thing in that stick or that tree. Replicators are in everything. And that's probably why a tree branch, the way it dies, is those replicators just sit there. And it's just a husk. And it's no longer alive. There's no longer a cell. There's no longer life. There's no longer a tree. There's no longer, you know what I'm saying? It's no longer. That's it. A tree is a form of life, basically. And that tree is a form of replicators. But you're trying to define it as part of, when in reality it's the whole fucking thing, you idiot. You're a small-minded idiot.
we use today. They are the code that shapes our traits. We're taught that these traits are here solely to help ensure our survival, the survival of the individual or the species.
But do we have this the wrong way around?
Yeah.
When you have a child, what do you pass on?
The DNA. Yeah,
DNA,
you know,
the
yeah,
genes.
the genes. Okay, yeah.
These tiny replicators are still fighting the same battle that started billions of years ago. And the logic behind them hasn't changed. The traits just become more convoluted. Replicators that produce traits poorly suited to their environment tend to become less common, while those that produce advantageous traits become more numerous in the population.
So it's not about the fittest individual or group, it's fundamentally about the survival of the fittest genes. They are the core unit of natural selection.
No, you are a dumbass because both groups you mentioned are the same thing. Replicators make them both, you fucking idiot.
But why would natural selection care exactly for the gene? Why not something smaller or something bigger?
Again, because you are an idiot and they're the same thing. Why not something smaller or something bigger? It's the same thing. It doesn't care. It just cares about what is. What can I... Like, for example, when you bite into a piece of bread, why don't you eat the whole thing at one time? Why do you take a little bit? It's just what works. It depends. That's it. Period. End of story. Same thing here now, all the way through. It's a replicator. That's all it is. It's replicators. Replicator. So it is.
Well, for something to undergo selection, it needs to have three characteristics. First, it needs to be able to make near identical copies of itself. Second, it needs to exhibit traits that affect its interaction with the environment, which third affect the probability of survival and reproduction of the replicator. Something small, like a single nucleotide, doesn't work, because sure, it'll make identical copies of itself, but alone, it doesn't exhibit a trait that could be selected for. What about something bigger, like a chromosome? Well, each chromosome affects potentially thousands of traits that could influence its survival, but when most creatures reproduce, sections of chromosomes get swapped around, so a chromosome doesn't stay together as a cohesive replicating unit, and therefore it can't be selected for. But a gene is somewhere in the middle. It's a long enough stretch of DNA that it can independently influence a trait, but it's also short and stable enough to be faithfully copied over into future generations.
1814 is where I stopped. If you think about it, our body is the same thing as us. It's just that we are in charge of our body, basically. Just like a manager or a CEO of FedEx is in charge of his store. It's the same thing. And you hire based on your needs, just like your body or just like these things that we're talking about, these replicators. And again, that's the point of us. That's what we do, why we have kids, just like our replicators, right? They have copies. Our body is like a party of people that go in for a raid boss, which is life. And our lungs would not survive without our stomach, and our heart, and keep going on and on and on and on. And they all work together to make us, and it's us together that is controlled by me, and me who is controlled by myself. That is everything that I am, and that's kind of what you're getting at, right? Like at the end of the day, that's kind of like it's just replicator on replicator on replicator, and we are just an assembly of multi-replicators. Our heart is a group of replicators, our stomach is a group of replicators, our intestines, everything is basically replicators. And again, that drop of air replicators, that water replicators, that dog replicators, that dog turd replicators, right? And that foul smell, the reason why is to remember those mixing and matching of those molecules at the very beginning? The reason why that smell exists the way it does is to make sure we don't match with those, because our bodies like that would be bad for the body and we would die. That's the point. But again, you missed it. You gave the example and you missed it.
This is why the gene is the unit of natural selection. This perspective led to one of the most powerful and controversial ways of seeing evolution, one popularized by Richard Dawkins in his book The Selfish Gene. Based on the work of evolutionary biologists in the 1960s and 70s,
1832. The guy on the top left, his facial hair and his head of hair, you can flip them and they would still work. So the point was that if you took his hair and his beard and you flipped them, they would still work as hair and beard. It just make it silly. But the point I was getting to, the reason why I paused it here is because these are just the names that we have become familiar with. They are just the names or the faces of the responsibility. It's kind of like the fall guy, if you will. He takes all the responsibility for the company and all the glory for the company, but they themselves are not individuals that stand out amongst other people. They just happen to be the face. I myself am above all of them individually and possibly together, basically, and I would be a replicator to help make more of people like them, if that makes sense. But I'm not sure if you are following along because you are kind of dumb. And so everything you're talking about, I get it, I understand it. But I don't think that, like, first off, that what I'm trying to say is they are just the face. They are the fall guys, they are just the face, right? They may or may not feel a certain way, whatever, but I think I could take them. In a debate about this, I could take them, I can hold them, and understanding what they're talking about, we can have consequence, we can have ideas and whatever, we can cross ideas, and I can lead all 5 of these people that you're talking about. And I'm way younger than them as well. And I can tear them up in a debate, literally. Like, they're dumb compared to me. They're stupid compared to me. That's the point. So anyways, continue.
and as a response against the then very popular group selection theory, Dawkins argued that just about every trait, from animals helping each other to being completely selfish, is a strategy that helps their genes survive and
That's not selfish.
replicate. Genes that maximize their own survival are the genes that propagate best, even if they do so at the expense of others. Or,
It could be.
in Dawkins' words, we are survival machines, robot vehicles blindly programmed to preserve the selfish molecules known as genes.
Now it's true as that may be. I wrote this weird. Unfortunately, I have people from Hollywood and the idea and consequence that it is Hollywood. And another example is Trump and everyone around Trump, and how he's a fall guy, and they have fall guys, and we have people behind closed doors and such. And the point is, that whole circle of people. The point is, we have evil in the world that will make fake replicators, and will hire fakers instead of the real deal, and that breaks the system. And that's kind of what's going on in the world today. We have a bunch of people that are making it because they are the best sellouts, and they sell out the best, so they get all the money and they get all the attention, they get all the favor, and they move forward. But society suffers, and these people who have all of the money and who influence all of this benefit, as in America, falls, for example, That's kind of what's going on, and that's what's going on in Russia and China. And that is what we call the circle of life. It's a moves us all, right? It's actually in a Disney movie. It's called The Circle of Life, right? That's what you're talking about. And all you're doing is just you're diving in, but at the very end of the day, it's just part of that circle, and that is what is the circle of life. That is the basic concept. So that's what you're talking about. And that whole statement of selfishness, it's bullshit. Dawkins was wrong. My point, in fact, is Dawkins was wrong. No, there is no bullshit. There's no selfish gene or whatever. He was wrong. Dawkins was wrong because we are not robot vehicles programmed to preserve a selfish molecule known as genes. That is not what we are. That is not what we are doing. We have those in us, but that is not what we are, and that is not what we are. Do you understand that that's what we are if you don't include this part I'm talking about? That's what makes us special. That's what makes us unique. That's what makes us alive. Things can be alive, but we are alive. We have a soul, so to speak. We're starting to get to the part where all of this connects into religion and the religion aspect. What is us? Why are we what we are? And that is what religion is, kind of. It's the heart and soul of life, literally, right? So you're discovering that yes, we are just a molecule, we're just a making machine to make a copy, but for what? Like, why is that? You said at the very basic, primitive billions of years ago, at the very principal layer, like, we don't know what it is, but that is what we are, replicators. And as humans, we are just essentially replicators. But for what? What's the point of all of this? Right? What's the point of living? What's the point of everything? Right? That's what I'm talking about. And to say that it's selfish, Dawkins is a fucking idiot. He is a fucking idiot to say that selfishness is a way to move forward. It's not.
Now, you might think this framework isn't all that groundbreaking.
I mean, take the emperor penguins in Antarctica, for example. They hesitate to jump into the water until they are sure there are no seals around. So what kind of genes could help a penguin survive in this environment? Well, if the penguin's set of genes make it more likely to be timid, the penguin might stay back until someone braver tests the water. That way the penguin is at a lower risk of being eaten and has a better chance of surviving, reproducing, and passing on its timid genes. Here, you can think about this either as the timid genes help the penguin, or the penguin helps the timid genes. Either way works.
So is there any real benefit to viewing things from the genes perspective? Well, look at what happens when you use these two frameworks to explain altruistic behavior, which appears in a lot of places in nature.
Take California ground squirrels, for example.
First off, now you're starting to preach. And this is why I call you stupid. And you need to stop talking because you sound like that dude that you go see in church, talking to people about hocus pocus and for why and for what. And you're telling us the point of living. We don't know for sure. This is all assumed. That's it. That's what it comes down to. We're looking to you for answers, and you don't have them. This is why I don't like religion, basically. You act like you know, but you actually don't. And the people who have the philosophy are fakers and pretenders, and they're just reading a book or a Bible, but there's nothing behind the context. And that's kind of what you are, Veritasium. I personally don't really care for nerding out like you do, apparently.
Females will let out alarm calls if they spot a predator, like a fox or a hawk, to warn other nearby squirrels, even though this puts her survival at risk. The genes influencing this behavior surely don't help this squirrel. But
That's wrong because she's a mother. Those are her kids. They help her because her kids are going to survive. Her genes prosper. She may die, but her genes live on. We are a vessel for our genes. That's what we are. There's something in us. And we are, it's kind of like a seed, if you will. Right? That's it. We're a seed. All we are is trying to carry the torch to the end. What's the end? We don't know, but we're trying to get there. That's kind of what it comes down to. So I went back a little, so watch a bit more, but basically you are wrong because she's helping her genes because she is protecting her children. You are just nerding out here and failing to see that, and that is why I stopped listening, because this will get more and more common because you're starting to get into theory, and this is ground where we don't know. We don't know it all, and it all depends since there's nothing to depend on. And since there is nothing to depend on, there is no point. Right? Because replicators replicate. But if what you're providing to us is nothing, and we're not doing anything, then what's the point of existing? At least with you and here, there's nothing to gain from listening to your Veritasium. You're dumb. You're full of shit. You should listen to me. I will give you life. I will provide you sources. This is why people get burnt out, because they run out of life. I have unlimited amount of life. I'm like Goku. I'm Gohan. I have the spirit bomb like a motherfucker. I have unlimited energy, bitch. I have a cap that cannot be contained, right? I have an amount that cannot be contained. But anyways, that's why I stopped watching, because he lost me. He lost me. I was done. I gave up because he missed it. There's no point for the genes. No, there is. She's protecting her kids, right? That's what they're doing. They're protecting their genes. You fucking dumbass. You're too big. You're too small. You don't get it. You don't get it. But anyways, thank you for watching. That's it. Sorry if I dragged you on for too long or whatever, but yeah, that was everything. But thank you for watching. I've been recording for how long now? I'm surprised I haven't gotten a fucking memory, blah blah. It's an hour and 7 minutes. But anyways, thank you for watching. Take it easy, keep it easy. Have a good one, Veritasium. You're a dumbass. You're trying, but again, I can teach you. I can show you the world. Take you wonder by wonder. Over, sideways, and under. On a map.
But can this
Carpet ride. A whole new world. A new fantastic point of view. No one to tell us no or where to go. And say you're only dreaming. But anyways, that's it. Peace out.